Good morning.
Welcome home to Unity. See, you found your way in the snow. This kind of car takes you here, doesn't it? So we're just thrilled to see everyone who's here. We know that Unity is a positive place for spiritual living. We gather to create an experience of spirit. At Unity Cedar Rapids, we offer practical teachings that empower our abundant and meaningful living, meeting you right where you are on the path. We endeavor to provide a variety of ways to support you as you journey here with us on your path to spiritual living. So, welcome. You'll have in your handout, these are our new spiritual activity sheets for you to take home with you. Make a great bookmark, I think. Anyway, so you got it all right in front of you all week. So be sure you take that part out of your bulletin. And before you shut off your phones, as you've all checked them, be sure that you check in with Facebook and be sure that you have liked Unity Cedar Rapids so that we come up frequently and upgrade our status, We appreciate you helping to do that and put us out in the community if you have anything going on here or anything to let people know. Be sure you come to church and see this and that and the other. So today we have a love brunch, which sounds exciting, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Today's Valentine's Day, so we have love and red and flowers and chocolate and all that. And Cindy and Dale and Ruth have done a special love brunch. And you saw as you came in on the sign out there, soup and bread and chocolate, and I've forgotten what else I saw out there, but love offering is always welcome. And now we have that little square thing so that you can use your debit and credit card to give your love offering if you've forgotten to stick a little cash in your pocket. Today there will be quick meetings of the talent show team and the knit and crochet team right after the service. So grab some food and find the others that are talking about that at a table and talk about the possibilities for those two upcoming things. Exploring Unity series is starting once again, and we'll be doing the Exploring Our Home tour from 10 to 12 on Saturday, the 20th of February. And the following day, Sunday the 21st, is Exploring Foundations, which is the basic class that talks about what Unity is all about, 5 principles, prosperity, those kinds of things. And that'll be right after the service on Sunday. Yellow registration cards are out in the foyer, on the table, in the bookstore, different places. If you know of anyone who's interested in doing that, we have 6 folks already that have signed up for that, so we're excited about that. Power, 12 powers we talk about here at Unity, and the power for February's strength. So there's little cards out here. Ruth makes these for the power each month. They're for you to take home. They also make good bookmarks in paperback books. I read all the time, and all these things are great for me. And then I see it every day, and I can read that. And so the power of strength for February, the ability to endure, stay the course, and persevere. I have the strength to accomplish all that is mine to do, this one says. So look for those out there and take one of those with you. All right. So what else do we have to say here? I think I got it all. All right. So let's just relax ourselves and let's open with our invocation, which is printed in your bulletin. Together, there is only one presence and one power in my life and in the universe. God, the good, omnipotent. And as you settle in and just relax, let's join together in prayer. In Charles Fillmore's book, A True Lent, his word for today is the altar. And the spiritual being that is within each of us, that spirit that guides us and is there for us each day. The more I learn about the power of the heart, the more I see that love is the natural expression of who I am. Prayer doesn't change God. Prayer changes each of us. As we relax and let go of the busyness of every day, and we come down from our head down to our heart, can tap into that heart energy and shift your focus. Bring that intention from all that busyness of the day to that wellspring of love within. Drop your awareness from your head to your heart. A place to relax into that energy of God's love. The energy of the heart is powerful enough to foster peace and connection even from a distance. During your prayer times, remember that God's love radiates outward, touching people around the globe. Throughout the day, silently bless each person that you see and every person who comes to mind. Following Jesus' teaching to love one another, radiate love and kindness to all. Know that God's love is at work in the world, and that love is the natural expression of who each of us truly is. Amen. The daily word reading that I've chosen for today is Powerful Words. And the scripture that it's based on is John. John is always the book of love in my understanding. And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the affirmation is, I bless the world through my thoughts, words, and actions. Being a blessing to others means bestowing goodness on others. My relationship with the divine is not only a blessing in my own life, but also supports me in being a blessing to the world. As a child of God, I am made in the image and likeness of God. I have access to the source of all peace, joy, wisdom, prosperity, and well-being. And tuning into spirit, I access divine ideas that are the building blocks of my life. These building blocks contribute to fulfillment and bless others in wonderful ways. I bless the world through my thoughts, words, and actions. And in my times of prayer and intention, I allow divine ideas to fill my mind. Throughout the day, I use words infused with positive energy. My thoughts, words, and actions express in powerful ways that bless the world. So we will do a congregational song. It's on your pink insert. We have two, pink and green. The pink one, it's in every one of us. And I want to remind you, as we wait for Sarah to come in and talk about the kids, that this is the first Sunday of Lent. Lent started on Wednesday, Ash Wednesday. If you saw some from traditional churches that had the ashes on their forehead, I saw it even on TV in different places. So that started the Lenten season of 40 days until Easter, and this is the first Sunday. These are free to you. They're out on the tables and in the bookstore, different spots. And so be sure that you take one of those with you. Have wonderful little readings for each day during Lent. And then I mentioned the day today, the word of Charles Fillmore for Lent from Keep It True Lent. And there are copies of this book out there too, if you would like to have some of those of Fillmore's writings and readings for Lenten time. And now we'll hear from the Youth and Family Ministers Director, Sarah, about what the children will be doing today. I think she's got a Valentine.
Hello. Yes, we are going to be talking about the power of love and having a fun Valentine's party. And so we're going to do our readings, and we're going to be creating some Valentines, talking about what is love, how we can identify love, how we know when people are showing love to us and how we show love to others. And then also decorating cookies and making some Valentines, finishing our mandalas, which take a really long time, and labyrinths, which, is what they're supposed to do. So anyway, so it's super fun. Happy Valentine's Day.
And good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you to this half of the room for showing up, because we just started singing at the beginning of the service and I was like, man, I think I really might be preaching to the choir today. So here we are. Thank you, sincerely. So I've had a week to just let last week kind of sink in, and I can't make it through that song without thinking about the play Rent and thinking about how powerful that message is, and it's just absolutely awesome. But I was over the week, I was thinking about how fun it was just to get everybody singing that stupid 80s song and just, enjoying that. And this week I decided to tone it down a little bit and get into a more of a foundational teaching. And the reason that I did that, and I'm doing this, is because, frankly, I need to hear it. Right now in my life, I'm experiencing a difference in the way that I'm hearing things, and I'm experiencing a difference in the way that I'm processing things, because I got a ringing in my ear. And I may have mentioned it in passing over the last few weeks, but this ringing in my ear has also caused 30% of my hearing, according to the audiologist, that 30% of my hearing has gone away in my left ear. And this happened, funny enough, on like January 22nd, right before I was supposed to start giving all these talks. And so it's been an interesting process. And for the first few weeks, I've really been struggling with, how do I talk about it? How do I mention it? Is it something that I just, do I just casually lean in with my right ear and just let it not be mentioned? Or do I talk about it? Do I admit that it's happening? And, I've been moving through this process, and for the first couple weeks, I'm sure Mary has just been frustrated with me, but I've been kind of just freaking out and irritable and frustrated and upset. And very short-tempered in situations and asking what all the time. And so, even though those things are happening, part of the beauty and the frustration, I guess, in the same time with Unity is that no matter what's going on in our circumstances, Unity makes us aware that we own our experience of the world that we see, and we own our experience of the world that we feel and the world that we touch. And so, because I've been kind of talking about it a lot and I've been kind of complaining and I've been irritable, I decided to go into a teaching from Fillmore that's right here in this book, and it's actually littered throughout the entire book in different ways. But this book, Atom Smashing Power of the Mind, if you haven't picked it up, I'm actually just going to go through a couple paragraphs and just talk about the paragraph, because the insight in this book is so just thick as well as truthful that if you haven't been introduced to Fillmore's work, I'm hoping that this gets somebody interested in it. Because as a co-founder of Unity, the great thing about Charles is that he wasn't educated. He didn't go to school. He didn't have a illustrious career. He wasn't some saint sent down from the heavens, so to speak. He was a guy born in St. Cloud, Minnesota, back in 1854. And when he was a kid, he had an ice skating accident. And when he had this ice skating accident, it caused his leg to grow weird. Like it didn't grow the way it was supposed to. And so he had kind of what people would call a disability. And as he grew and moved through his life, he had all kinds of jobs, like as a miner, and he worked with real estate, and he did all kinds of just different odd jobs to keep himself busy. But then when he met Myrtle Fillmore, the other co-founder of Unity, she had actually had troubles with tuberculosis through her family. And they both were interested in, Myrtle was a Methodist, and she was more interested in biblical teachings than Charles was. But because Charles, like Myrtle, like most guys, they'll go do some things that they weren't necessarily interested in to keep the thing going. And so he showed up and he started listening to biblical teachings, and they went to a talk by someone by the name of E.B. Weeks. And one of the draws from that talk was that you are a beloved child of God. And as a beloved child of God, you do not inherit sickness, okay? And Myrtle, she took it. She took it and she used it, and she opened the can. She opened it and full-blown opened it. And she started to experience healing. And she started to move out of this experience of tuberculosis and into a place of healing. And Charles, being no slouch, he decided to follow suit. And he started to apply his own methods and apply his own focus on a similar experience. And lo and behold, over time, he experienced healing. And so this gets me fired up because this isn't a story about Jesus and the way he spoke healing on people, but it's demonstrating the Christ mind is present in every one of us, all right? And so what they did was they used the power of the word, and they used the focus of their innate knowing that they are a part of the Christ consciousness. So I kind of want to talk about the power of the word and kind of go through what Charles Fillmore presents as his ideas about the word. So this is actually from page 139. If anyone already has the book, I just want to let you know it is page 139, starting at the bottom, as far as what I'll be reading. To give a little setup on that, like Jan said, she actually read the verse that I was going to focus on is John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So we're going to go with that verse by verse. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So, in unity, there's mind, idea, expression, all right? Mind, idea, expression is the order of how things come into being. So, in the beginning was the Word. Now, the Word, in this sense, is that idea, that expression, that place of power with us to be able to bring forth from the invisible to the visible. The interesting thing about this statement was, for me, the Word was with God and the Word was God. So there's two parts to it. The Word is with God and the Word is God. So it makes me think that the act of speaking is actually the activity of spirit, okay? It's not just the Word is the end all be all, the beginning and the end, but the Word is actually the activity of moving from the end to the beginning. Verse 2, God, the Word, He was with God in the beginning, and through Him all things were made. Without Him nothing was made that has been made. Now, traditional Christianity will use this verse to prove that Jesus was God, that Jesus was the Son of God. Fillmore uses this verse to demonstrate that Christ's consciousness is the Son of God. And if you guys are familiar with Eric Butterworth, he gives a wonderful talk on how the phrase or the verse, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. When the Bible is referring to his only begotten Son, it's looking at the experience of all of the sonship, not just Jesus the man, but all of us as the children of God. We are God's only begotten Son. We are the expression of God, not in our divisive or separate consciousness, but in our ability to tap into that Christhood nature. All right? So through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. So it's through our Christ consciousness that we make things. It's through Christ that we give life to our word. And it says in verse 4, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So when I think about that, I think about how a lot of times things happen in life that I don't really know what the heck is going on. And this verse gives me hope because it tells me that the light shines in the darkness and the darkness has not overcome it. So no matter what the situation is, if I'm able to look at it, align myself with the Christ consciousness, align myself with the truth that I do not inherit sickness, align it with the truth that I am beloved, align it with the truth that I am holy, then whatever experience that I'm going through that I see as anything short of that can be overshined, can be dissipated by the light of truth, okay? And that's a hopeful truth for me. The key thing here as I move forward is we're going to go through some of the words of Charles Fillmore. And when we look at the experience of words in our lives and the words that are reflected in the Bible, words can be at the level of the Christ mind, and words can be at the level of the personal man, okay? So when we use our words at the level of the personal man, we're using our words mindlessly. We're using our words just kind of flippantly, and we're not being conscious of how we are putting into the ethers our creative energy, our creative power as the children of God. When we are able to slow down, be aware of our ability as the children of God, we can align with the Christ mind and put forth into the ethers that which works and co-creates for the good of all. So the best analogy that Charles Fillmore came up with this, or for this, is the analogy that every word or every idea is a seed, okay? And he has this whole chapter based on the seed as the word. And I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs from it and talk about them. This is Charles Fillmore. Every idea is a seed and will bring forth according to its character, modified somewhat by the kind of mind soil in which it is planted. So each one of us, being a child of God, has our own creative energy, has our own ability to bring forth from the invisible to the visible. When we have an idea, when we experience something that is drawn out from the divine mind of God, we can either let it plant and grow, or we can just let it pass by and not connection or take ownership of it. We can simply not water that seed and let it wither, or we can grow and demonstrate it in a whole different way. Fillmore, there is a law of growth in mind parallel with that of the earth. A thistle seed will always produce thistles, regardless of the character of the soil. A low ideal will likewise work out in a high type of mind. You may be a giant in strength today, but if you get into your mind the thought of sickness, it will bring you down as surely as if you were a weakling. All right, so there's a law of growth in mind parallel with that of the earth. We know that an acorn will produce an oak tree. We know that a thistle seed will always produce thistles. We know that a banana will grow another banana. We know that these things are going to work. We don't sit there and plant I think Brenda even said this once, we don't plant a mango tree and hope that we're going to get apples from it. We know how this works. And so Charles Fillmore would propose that the idea of creation in our world is quite scientific. There's nothing new or exciting about how things just happen in our lives. What we do know is that sometimes things happen in our lives that are unexpected, right? Well, it goes through our minds, and whether or not we consciously water it, we may actually allow it to take credence or hold true in our lives. So he continues, so it is with every thought that finds lodgment and at the same time credence in your mind. It will produce fruit of its kind just as surely as will the material seed planted in the earth. So I need to hear this today, because as I keep talking about my experience with my ear, I could be affirming health and wholeness. I could be affirming the truth of what I am as a child of God. I could be affirming that within me is the divine blueprint of perfect health. And even though these things are happening, I'm not simply using denial to just spiritually sugarcoat it, to take a bad situation and just act like it's not happening and be ignorant to it. What I can recognize is the power within me to bring forth something different, the power within me as a co-creator with the world I experience to draw a different experience. So our seed, our word, it goes through a similar process of growth as plants do. It doesn't always spring forth at once, and this is Fillmore, and rapidly come to fruition, but it goes through a methodical series of changes from inertness to tiny sprout, away deep down in the consciousness where it is not observed by the external thinking mind. So this brings in Charles Fillmore's philosophy about there's superconscious, there's ego, and then there's subconscious. And the ego is just the external thinking mind. It's not like a negative thing, but the ego is the experience of the external thinking mind, where we all have our own thoughts and we're aware of those thoughts. The subconscious is where we're not necessarily aware of our thoughts. And the superconscious is the Christ mind, where we can focus on those higher consciousness thoughts that draw truth from us and through us. So what he's saying here is that it's not necessarily according to a specific time, but like plants do, sometimes they can grow faster, sometimes they can grow slower. In the same way, our thoughts and our words can create something quickly, or it can create something a little more slowly. Mary can attest to this, that when she wants something done by me, sometimes she can use more words to get me to get things done. So the way this coming up is where we want to pay attention. I have in my notes. In due course, it sends out a shoot in the direction of external consciousness, which finally comes to the surface in some discord or some harmony. The time of planting is usually so remote that even he who knows the law of growth from thought to thing cannot remember when he sowed the seeds that are manifest in his consciousness as thistles. All right, so this is where I get fired up. This is a call to action. This is a call to awareness, a mind watching. Charles Fillmore sat for 4 hours a day in the presence of his own thoughts, in the presence of his own spiritual connection. He made it a daily practice to become very aware, very astute about how he processed and moved through his creative process. And when we look at the creative process, again, mind, idea, expression, if we don't spend appropriate time looking at how we're thinking about our experience, how are we ever going to manage to change the ideas and expression that we have of that experience? Okay, so it's important, Unity talks about prayer and meditation. If we're not taking time to do that, we're not empowering ourselves as the children of God, as the co-creators that we are, to make a difference in our lives. So the idea was that, why is it when I say a bunch of stuff, nothing ever changes? That was in the e-news. That was the call. Well, what are we putting as an energy behind what we're saying? Are we really putting an idea of empowerment and ownership of the situation into what we're saying around the situation? Or are we playing the victim and just saying a bunch of stuff expecting that the victimhood continues? So Charles Fillmore would say to remember that in and of themselves, words do not necessarily mean anything. But what we see, I want to make sure that I give the right. All right. The central seed is the generative center from which the personal man forms himself. He draws upon the universal forces within and without, just as a tree draws upon the spirit manifesting itself in earth, air, and water. He may be unconscious of the situation, but that does not nullify the fact. So, what that means is that even though we may spout out words, the words themselves are simply a reflection or a vehicle of the energy that we put forth through our faith, through our strength, and through our focus. Charles Fillmore continues, when told that certain thoughts have produced certain effects in his case, the patient will invariably respond, but I was not thinking those thoughts. So this refers back to the subconscious, trying to become aware of what's going on in our subconscious. Some people use dreams as a window into the subconscious. Some people believe that if you spend time in meditation, you can start to see what rises up within you. And you can start to get a feel for what those issues or concerns might be in our own minds. An interesting fact about Charles and Myrtle Fillmore is that they realized that they could do this in themselves, and they didn't just keep it to themselves. They actually created what's now known as Silent Unity and created a huge prayer ministry where they could send prayers to those throughout the world. And people, the reason Silent Unity started to grow so much is because people actually started to have experiences of healing. So I really start to believe that there's some credence to the idea that as we focus our thoughts and we focus our energy on using words appropriately and also using our energy appropriately with the words to start to experience a different condition or to have a different a different view on the world, a different perspective. Charles Fillmore says one of the first lessons to be learned by the student of metaphysics is that the seed is the word. The next is that this kind of seed is hid in the darkness of the mind where it germinates, sprouts, and comes into visibility with all the scientific accuracy of detail of the ordinary plant. If that doesn't sound like a call to awareness of what's going on in our minds, I don't know what does. The fruit is a living organism too, and has the power to throw off seeds that can find lodgment and produce crops in others' receptive minds. That right there points to what happened last week. 3 weeks ago, Mary was introduced to a song from another organization called Messengers of Peace, and it was that Krishna Das song that we listened to last week. I heard it, I had an experience of spirit, and I was like, I'm going to share this. So we had it in this congregation, and we all enjoyed, I believe, a festive time of singing along, but then also looking at how we can have a different experience of a similar song and have a total different trajectory of what and how it roots in us. I imagine, I hope, some of you took that to heart and shared it with other individuals and talked about what we can do in service and what we can do just through our own minds. And in that way, what Fillmore's talking about is that as the fruits of our spiritual labor go forward, it helps to have other people grow their own fruits and have their own experience of growth in the spirit. He continues, but each man is a gardener who has absolute charge of his mind and can determine just what kind of seed shall be planted in his domain. What he says is law in the garden of which he has control. If he is lax, shiftless, and ignorant of his privileges, he may let the thistle seeds from foolish minds blow over his fence and take root in his garden. But it is not at all necessary. By his simple word of command, he can protect his domain from all intruders. Not all men know this, nevertheless it is true. So ultimately, after all of this, Charles Fillmore has said with no uncertain terms that we control the thoughts in our mind, that we are able to pick and choose from the flow and the stream of divine consciousness what works for us. Now, a few weeks ago, I talked about as we start to become more spiritually aware, we may find that the voice that we hear doesn't necessarily reflect spiritual concepts. In those situations, we are to bring our attention back to the Lord Jesus Christ. We are to bring our attention back to the invitation of Holy Spirit to help us remember to stay centered in alignment with Christ. So as we move through these decisions and as we move through these awareness pieces, when we go into meditations, we can always remember, if I'm wondering, is this a thought from God or is this a divine idea? Invite the Holy Spirit into the experience. Invite your awareness of Jesus Christ into your experience. I didn't even know what the heck that meant when somebody told me to do that. I was like, what are you talking about? And when I started to do that, I started to have a different experience of my thoughts, frankly, and I started to raise the barometer, raise the bar, I guess, on how I looked at the thoughts that were going on in relation to any situation. And as I started to raise that bar and raise that consciousness, I noticed that things around me started to become more and more aligned, and more representative of my higher level of thinking. And when I say higher level of thinking, I don't mean that one's better or otherwise. I just mean that I felt more clear about what I was experiencing. I felt more in integrity about what I was experiencing. And that felt like a higher way of living for me. So when we look at our world, we have to remember that the visible is always rooted in the invisible, that the world is not happening to us, but rather through us and from us. The acorn in and of itself can do nothing, but it is the avenue by which creativity moves through. All right? So it's up to us to harness the power of our mind according to the example set forth by Jesus, who aligned with the Christ, that we might bring forth a peaceful world. The things that are going on in this world, it's up to us to change. We sing that peace song every week, and it's up to us to look at my experience of the world, what's going on in my mind, and to sit with myself long enough for me to understand why I'm having an experience short of peace. And so I just invite everyone to join in that effort, to join in that focus. There's a great quote. It's kind of long, but I think it's purposeful, and I'll close with this as soon as I get to it. Sorry. Well, so much for the big close. It's week 3, folks. We'll get there. What it says is that the gist of the quote, I should have marked it, obviously. The gist of the quote is that Charles Fillmore's big fire about the purpose of Unity People is that we are going to slowly but surely bring forth a power of the word so great that as we start to share that word with others and share the truth of our Christ nature throughout the world, that we will slowly and surely raise the consciousness of our world and raise the consciousness and what he called race consciousness in such a way that ultimately, like Jesus transfigured into the spirit body, that ultimately we are headed in that direction. And I love that concept. I love that idea that we as New Thought movement members can help bring about a change so powerful. And so I just invite you to look at the practices you have in your life and basically join me in the way that I've been looking at the practice in my life of how I identify pain or how I identify unworthiness or how I identify struggle in my life and try to transform it and look at, the truth and correct the error thoughts around that. So we'll take that into meditation. I invite you to get comfortable in your seats and let your feet rest flat on the floor. Take a nice deep breath. Now take 3 nice deep breaths. Just using this time to simply quiet the mind, become available and open. The mind may want to wander about certain things, questions about what do I think about? Questions about how do I stay focused? What am I focused on? Just as we continue breathing through this meditation, I invite you to remember that we are the children of God. And as such, we inherit health, wholeness, abundance. That as children of God, there is no way that we could really be unworthy. There is no way that we could lack. There is no way that we are not important. We are the path to God. In us and through us, we gently consider the idea that sin is simply an error thought And we challenge ourselves to go into our memory, go into our mind in such a way that we remember past that first error thought. And we find a way to bring forth the word, the seed of truth, that we are wholly lovable, wholly loving, and completely whole. We are love on this Valentine's Day. And so it is. All right. Well, now's the time where we can gather together our tithes and offerings. And if there's anyone here for the first time and they haven't received a welcome packet, I'm more than happy to bring one to you. In the welcome packet, there's a survey for how you think things are going and if we made you feel welcome and what you might want to see here at Unity Cedar Rapids. Just let us know how we're doing. You can turn that survey into Greg and he'll get you a free CD for today's service. Otherwise, thank you everybody for coming again in the midst of our winter fun. And the choir is going to bless us with a song after we say our blessing, which is on the right-hand side of our bulletin, saying, "Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am grateful."